Jimbordolar Ningmijang, Munam Jimbor, Nagada. Agardan Gonzando Germardo, Dunda de Jala, Gijanzar. Miba Simjan Tamjerapta Tarusha and Picture Trusha. Go, Shunigum. Kanino. Semchen Tamchelar, Numbro Nebrandope, Semchen Tamcherapta Taroshavi, Shiro Nebro Shao. Semchen Tamchelar, Numbro Nebrandope, Dope, Gala Nebro Sha, Meba, Semchen Tamchelar, Numbro Nebrandope, Semchen Tamcherapta Taror, Shayu Shirdo Nebro Shao, Meba, Semchen Tamcherapta Tarosha and Dope Chirtra Sha, Meba, Semchen Tamcherapta Tarosha Mindope, Nyomomba, Le, Rapta Taroshao. Meba Nyomon Arpandope Chester Raptor Janrusha, Meba Nyomon Arpandope Surgeon the Raptor Jarusha, Meba Chirtawa Raptor Jarjana, Surgeon the Raptor Jura Yinda, Meba Tia Mepatan, Gaba Mepala Raptor Jurana, Surgeon the Raptor Jura Yuno, Meba Merkit Mungo, Chimungo, Meba Mugeva Nam Merkit, Geva Nam Mungo. Gewana Mongoko, Meba, Gewada Mogivis Zava Kanlo, Meba, Jigtsuk Zavago, Meba, Jigtsuk Zava Kanlo, Meba, Jigtsuk Zava Dobadan Chabago, Meba, Dobadan Chapi Zava Kan, Meba, Dobadan Chapi Zava, Gana Mayimba, Gunder Tobago, Meba, Yantaba Mayimba, Gunder Tober Zava Kanlo, Meba, Yantaba Mayimba, Gunder Tober Zava, Shinjuluk and the Shizo. Meba Shinjalok and the Shiki Sava Kanlo, Meba Shinjalok and the Shiki Savana, Tin Mepa War, Meba Tin Mepi Sava Kanjena, Meba Jaffer Kan, Tin Mepa Ti Savarkira Chishiote, Tir Chutam Chitner Tin Mepi Savala Neba War, Dene Kim De Na Nepi, Hamo Ti, Shanchip Senhua. Shanchip Senhua Chimbo Teta Chutam Banda Tuni, Gamga Ye. Rande Rangali Ragbatan, Himetok, Shanchu Sanhua, Chimbo Tedagdan, Yantu Chimbo Tedagla, Mumbur Turti, Turadan Shanchu Sanhua Namji Lila Metok, Kantak, Salalhungo, Yantu Chimbo Namji Lila Metok, Kantak, Tenit, Cherne, Sala Malhungo, Sala Malhungo, Deni Yantu Chimbo Tetak, Zamchirji, Chumchirji Metok Tetan, Strikyang Malhungo. Deni Lamo de the Katsedan Damba, Sherry Velanderkichi, Meso, Deni Lamo di Sedan Damba, Sherry Velanderkichi, Meso, Zumba, Sherry, Metum the dog de Chipsha, Mebal Hamo, Metum the dog, Roma Mayin Bena, Duck Metum the Dondoro, Hamur Meba, Zumba Sherry, Derkut Marmaji, the Chifsherjena. Metok Tetagna Marunga Mayano, Ruayano, Metok Tetagna Ruayano, Chief Sirjin under that, Metok Tetagna, Mustok, number Mustok Bate, and it Sherry when you Stokchan, number Toba, Toko. Somebody Sherry with Tetag Lugburg, Somber, Chun, Derva Raptor, Shone, Chu Stoba, number Toba Tetagna, Ruma Mayan Bow. A Nefton, Stokjan, number Tobate, Gantak Mustobate, Ruao. Zumba, Sherry, and the Star, Toba, number Toba, Pangvi, Sheriff, Shansu Sanhua Chimbo, Dataka, Lila Metok, Machak Bala, too. Dustate, where none Jigby, Ramjin, Changi, Mulala, Mumayim Barnam Gigalak of Neto. Division, Corbin Jigby, Stakbar Namna, Zigdan, Jadan, Chudon, Rodan, Rakshir, like Nepran, Euro. Gandang the Chitamchi, Nyomon, Ben Jigbadan, Jarate, Zigdan, Jadan. zhidang, zhodang, rakshi chijikshir yote, gangdak vakshik marpangwa dedagla metuk kijang chigji, gangdak vakshik pangwa dedagla lila metuk machakte, devena vakshik tamchir pangwa namji lila metuk machak so.
Let's now continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra. Well, I think we have 3 classes left other than this class. I hope all of you will continue to be attentive during this class, during this last few classes in this year. And hopefully next year will continue if nothing else happens. So this week we'll finish today, and then next week we'll have Monday and Tuesday classes, and then the Monday class after that class, which will mark the end of this year's lessons. Generally, I think everyone's being very attentive and very focused during class. Although, I think in terms of the number of audience, at the beginning we had a few more. In fact, I think 1/3 of people left the class, or they've probably interrupted their oral transmission or classes, maybe because of their busy schedule, and sometimes maybe because they don't have enough faith and devotion towards the Dharma. But in general, I think this is one of the most audience who are attending the classes on Vimalakirti Sutra, even in the history of the teaching of such sutra. There are people who give up because of their personal obstacles and other things, but I think majority of you have and are going to finish all the 3 classes that's left in this year. Also, I think during listening to such teachings, of course, I'm not trying to say this because of I have such agenda, or I'm trying to make you feel happy about yourself. But I myself actually feel that even after each class, I feel quite happy and rejoice myself for doing such. Why is that? It's because during such an age, such a time, everything's so turbulent and chaotic. For those of you who read news and know this world, in fact, there are so many people who are starving and are in poverty or in war zone. Millions of people are in such a situation where they don't have any freedom to listen to the Dharma at all. Even there are millions of people who live in countries and regions where they have endless wars. where they really don't have any opportunity to listen to the Dharma or any freedom and time to listen to the Dharma. In other regions where there are no war, no apparent war, but there are conflicts, political conflicts or economic or religious and philosophical conflicts, where they have no freedom because they're under such reign of religious control or so. And although if there are, even if you live in a place where it's rather peaceful and have such peace, but maybe in your own family you're suffering from lawsuits and divorce and family conflicts and such, just as Sarah Condro's autobiography, where she states that she actually had divorce lawsuits in a court with Gara, who is her husband. The translations are a little bit different. In the English version, where it is stated that she had to pay her husband 12 silver coins. But in the Tibetan versions, it says that because Sarah Condro's son, although he is considered as a child without a father, but Gara was taking care of him. Therefore, Gara should pay Sarah Condro 14 silver coins, and the other. And Sarah Condro in turn to pay Gara about 14 silvers, and Gara should pay her 12 silvers. Well, in one of the nationality publications from Beijing, it states that 1 silver coin at that time equals to about 5 RMB at that time. Until this time, it's probably about 300 to 400 RMB or so. People who get ordained, maybe slowly they will. So people who are not ordained, they may encounter into problems as such, and people who are ordained, maybe they would encounter problems because of their past residue of the karma and so on, and they will have more obstacles that way personally. Anyhow, my point is that it's really not easy to listen to the class, to complete the entire course. It's really not easy. And compared to the time of Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, if you look at the stories that happened during Jigme Phuntsok's time, you would know that during his time, he actually, it was really difficult for people, for even a few dozens of people to finish the whole complete teaching of the course of One Sutra or Shastra. Another thing I would like to address is that masters who graduated and went out to teach Dharma outside of the monastery, if you have not destroyed the 3 Tripitakas, the precepts, meditation, and wisdom, then during your listening of this class, I know many of you are doing really well outside. I think we should turn obstacle situations into favorable conditions to ourselves. Doesn't matter in terms of your aspiration of helping others, of propagating Dharma, or in terms of your own studies. I think we should all try our best. I've encouraged everyone not to think that Laronggar is your home, because this is very temporary. do not consider Larungar as your homeland, because after finish learning the Dharma, you should go out and you should go to different places and propagate Dharma, because even if you can plant the virtuous seeds to people, even to a few people, that's valuable. There are students who went to Nalanda University to study the Dharma, and at that time they didn't consider Nalanda as their university. Of course, I'm not asking you to become Master Xuanzang or Master Fa Xian, but I think once you've studied the Dharma, even if you receive some teaching from the Dharma, you should spread it to your relatives, to your friends, and so on. This is the value of the Dharma. This is the value of your study. I think lots of the biographies and autobiographies of past masters, even if you are lay practitioners, you should learn from them. In the past, we would consider the monastics are have a higher hierarchy in this group. But after studying Vimalakirti Sutra, we know that lots of the lay practitioners are enlightened, are realized, and they have such great capacity. So I think we should learn just like Vimalakirti himself, although we cannot be exactly like Vimalakirti, who's already an enlightened being. But let's look at him. Lots of those Shravakas can't even compete to him. The Arhats cannot compete to him. Then Manjushri was conversing with Vimalakirti, and then later we will include the goddess who's going to converse with Vimalakirti as well. Sometimes because of their conversation, we can't even figure out whether if Manjushri, the Bodhisattva, has a higher realization, or Vimalakirti does. My point is that, in fact, your status, let it be lay practitioner or monastic, it's really not the most important. Maybe for you, monastics, although you wear the robes, but you don't really keep the pure precepts, then it's not really valuable. For lay practitioners, they have different conducts that they could do, but monastics can't. Still limited. Anyhow, we'll continue. Yesterday we talked about how Manjushri has such conversation with Manjushri has conversation with Vimalakirti, and then Manjushri was asking questions as a beginner bodhisattva to Vimalakirti. We finished 2 questions already yesterday, and then we'll continue the next 10. First of all, Manjushri asked, as bodhisattvas, how could bodhisattvas face their birth and death? And then Vimalakirti said that the bodhisattva should rely on the power of Tathagata's merit. The commentaries from different masters are different in terms of this part, and mostly because yesterday what we talked about is from the aspect of compassion, and today we're going to talk about this from the aspect of compassion. Yesterday we talked about it from the sympathy aspect, and today is from compassion and the next 3 aspects. So, if one wished to save sentient beings, what should be eradicated? That's Manjushri's question. How could we eradicate? What should one eradicate in order to save the sentient beings? What should we eliminate in order to save and liberate the sentient beings? That's the question. And then Vimalakirti's answer is that if you wish to save and liberate sentient beings, then you should eradicate the afflictions, because there's no other way other than eradicate the afflictions. When we try to save the sentient beings, we often think that maybe teaching the Dharma is a way to save sentient beings, and other rituals and so on are those to be considered as saving sentient beings. On one hand, it is considered as liberating sentient beings, but on the other hand, it is based on whether if you can eradicate the sentient beings' afflictions, because if you could do so, then that's called liberating sentient beings. Because in the earlier we talked about how liberating sentient beings is the most important responsibility for all Mahayana practitioners. The only thing you should remember is that you should benefit the sentient beings. That's the responsibility you should remember and keep it in your heart at all times. In the 4 great vows that we often chant, it says that the 4 great vows are the sentient beings are limitless, and we vow to save them all. The afflictions are limitless, and we vow to eradicate them all. So yesterday we've already talked about vow to save them yesterday, and today we're going to talk, in fact this part talks about afflictions are limitless and we vow to eradicate them all. And then the teachings are inexhaustible and we vow to learn it all. This is the most important. We should learn the limitless Dharma, the limitless teachings of the Buddha Dharma. And then at the end, we vow to attain the enlightenment of Buddhahood that is unsurpassable. We should, after we attain the Buddhahood, and we'll be able to also save the limitless sentient beings, liberate the sentient beings. In order to do that, we should then study the limitless texts, and then on top of that, we should practice those teachings on our own. Because in the Buddhism system, we talk about listening, studying, and listening, studying, or contemplation and practicing. So you have to practice it yourself. Otherwise, you can't really use it on yourself at all. Otherwise, chanting, circumambulating, and prostrating, those are considered as merits. Those are extremely important meritorious actions. But in order to eradicate the afflictions, we need to give rise to the view of emptiness after studying the Dharma. Then, with such a view of emptiness, we'll be able to analyze the nature of afflictions, and then through choosing or analyzing, let it be esoteric or exoteric, esoteric as in look at the nature of afflictions, and then you'll be able to eradicate the afflictions, and those are extremely important. So the fourth question then Manjushri asks, saying that if one wishes to eradicate the afflictions, what should one practice then? And then Vimalakirti answers that if you wish to eradicate the afflictions, then you should practice right mindfulness. To abide in right mindfulness or practice right mindfulness, in fact, the right mindfulness over here in Tibetan and in Chinese translation, it is a little bit different. The Kumara Jiva's translation over here means that you do not forget. In fact, you remember at all times to remember all the right actions, to remember the right things to do. For example, if you should always remember that you are a Mahayana practitioner, and then you shouldn't be angry at others. You shouldn't lash out your anger in front of others, and so on. This is the right mindfulness as a Mahayana practitioner. As stated in Ashvaghosha's Acts of the Buddha, it states that holding correct mindfulness in mind, no evil is possible to invade, which means that once you have the right mindfulness, then all those afflictions, all those three poisons, they have actually no space to enter and disturb you at all. So we should have such awareness. This is quite important. In Chan or Zen Buddhism, they often talk about awareness. As they say that do not be afraid of how thoughts arise in you, but be afraid of the late awareness of such. So, once you are aware, then there are many ways to eradicate such afflictions or thoughts or unreasonable thoughts. As stated by Shantideva, he said that he folds his hands together and sincerely supplicate that everyone should hold right mindfulness in their heart at all times. And once you have such right mindfulness, then you'll be able to eradicate all the afflictions and thoughts that arise in you. And then Manjushri continued to ask, then how can you practice correct mindfulness then? Then Vimalkirti answered that then one should practice non-generation and non-extinction. But over here, non-generation and non-extinction, over here, it sounds like the no birth and no death that's stated in Madhyamika, in the middle way teaching. Then later on, but this is different because later on you can see Manjushri continue to ask what dharmas are non-generated and what dharmas are non-extinguished. And then over here, the Vimalakirti continue to answer from a very worldly aspect. It says that let the not good actions not to be generated, and the good dharmas and good actions are to be non-extinguished. Let the non-generated good actions to be generated, and let the generated good actions to be increasingly more and strong, and let the wrong actions or bad dharmas that is already arisen to extinguish, and let the wrong or bad dharmas that's not arose, never to be arose. This is the aspect that it talks from, because it talks about to practice all good. So Bodhisattva talks about this from a worldly aspect to teach us that we should practice all good and eradicate all wrong actions. Doesn't matter if you're a monastic or you're a lay practitioner. This is really important to remember, as it is stated by the Buddha in the sutra, where he said that what Buddhism is to practice all good and eradicates all wrong actions, to purify one's mind, and that is the teaching of all Buddhas.
No.
I had tea stick in my mouth. Well, we talked about not to conduct all wrong actions, but to practice all good actions. In fact, in the Tripitaka, I'm not sure if I talked about it before. In some of the translations where it says that to practice all good and to practice not to practice many wrongs. I'm not quite sure why they translate all and then translate it as many. In fact, it should be practice all goods and do not practice all bad actions. That's the proper translation. It has 3 levels of explanation. The first one is to practice or to eradicate all bad actions. That is the practice of Shravakas. And then the Bodhisattva's way of practice is to practice all the goods to benefit all sentient beings, and to practice in such a way, to practice all the actions that benefits the sentient beings. That's the Mahayana's way of practice. And then as Vajrayana practice, it talks about to purify one's own mind through different skillful means. That's the Vajrayana way of working on the mind, and that's the teaching of the Buddha. In fact, these 4 stanzas are recorded in Dhammapada Sutra, maybe around the 1 CE. At that time, a translator from India, then he collected all the Buddhists at that time who collected all the teachings of the Buddha, and then the collections of all those teachings are collected together, a collection of Dhammapada. That's around time of, and then around the time of the 2nd century, and then there's another translation where a few of the stories were added to the teachings of Dhammapada. And then, so the 3 of them are a little bit different. The one I translated is the one I just used. Those 4 stanzas I quoted are from this Master Fagio, who was from India at that time. So he, at that time, in fact, he explained it from the 3 levels. But Dhammapada has the teachings of the Shravakas, mainly on to the Shravakas. Not only these 4 stanzas are 4 verses of stanzas are included in Dhammapada. In fact, it's also included in Vinaya Sutra and many more. A few Tibetan Khenpos the other day was saying that, was telling me that these 4 verses are not found in the Tripitaka. I said, no, you can definitely find it, because you can find it in the Parinirvana Sutra and the Dhammapada Sutra. But the Parinirvana Sutra is not translated into Tibetan. In fact, in the ancient time, there was a Mantita who wanted to translate it into Tibetan language, but he didn't do so. So during our learning of the teachings of the origin, we should know the origin of such quotes. And I think it's really important to understand the Mahayana teachings, and even more so, as Buddhists, we should do is that we should learn the original Buddhism teachings as well. As I said, I was reading the Agama Sutra, and during translation and reading such, I actually have abundant harvest of knowledge from that. In the earlier times, I always felt that I'm a Tibetan Buddhism or Mahayana practitioner. Therefore, all these kind of teachings have nothing to do with me. But I changed my mind now because those original teachings, in fact, have lots of values for us to learn. What I'm saying is that do not limit yourself. As I said yesterday, now we're in this age as Buddhists. Let's not make boundaries for ourselves and create a small circle and small comfort zone for ourselves. You only think about you and your guru, and that's all. You don't think of the society or the world. You only consider you and your guru in your comfort zone, and then that's quite lonely. You have quite a lonely circle then. So we should have a bigger perspective and see ourselves as Buddhists first. And then we also should look at other religions. For example, if you were to go to the UK, and even if you meet someone on the train of UK, if you met someone who are someone else who are Buddhists, you definitely become good friends afterwards. I've heard stories like such. But if you were to identify yourself as a student of certain guru, of a certain school and sect, and then if you were to meet some other Buddhists on the train of UK, but they're from a different school, different lineage, and different follows a different teacher, then if you identify yourself that way, how can you yourself consider yourself as a Mahayana practitioner? Because as Mahayana practitioners, we consider all sentient beings as our mothers of past times. If you only identify yourself as a practitioner of a Buddhist, but not only a Buddhist, but a Buddhist of certain school, of a certain teacher, because there are so many different schools and so many different lineages and so many different teachers, and then if you continue to count it, they will become smaller than a dust, as considering yourself as someone very specific. And then you would consider the other teachers' disciples as from a different universe, and you don't define yourself as the same category as you, and sometimes even have lots of repulse and lots of rejection towards others, and you can't even stay in the same space with the others who are not from the same teacher. If you only consider the other extreme is that you continue to change different lineages and different schools and different Dharma centers and different Sangha members, Sangha communities and so on. That's another extreme, as you don't identify yourself as anyone. I'm not sure how I distracted myself to be talking about this at this moment.
法王的那个法王在那个好像在中央花园吧，就是那个
Pansar Rinpoche, when he was staying in his central garden residence, a few monks novice monks were playing around over there around his stairs.
对，然后就他的老师就来了。然后他就老师来了，他就害怕了。 我不知道我掉在这个上面。
And his teacher came, and the little novice monk said that, I'm not sure how I got here. He was actually sliding from the stairs railing, and then the novice, once he noticed that his teacher approaches, he was trying to lie, but he couldn't think of anything except saying that, I don't know how I got here. Well, my point was that I don't know how I got to here, to talk about the different schools and do not limit yourself and so on. So where are we now? Well, we talked about non-generation and non-extinction. The seventh question is that the no good and good Dharma, we talked about that, and then Manjushri continued to ask, what's the basis of those? Then the answer is that body is their fundamental basis. Over here, body over here means the view of body, a view of I, or Sakaya Ditti, or the view of I, view of body, is their fundamental basis. Then Manjushri continued. Then to ask what is the fundamental basis of the body. Then Vimalakirti said that desire and greed is its fundamental basis. Over here, the desire or greed actually has the meaning of ignorance, because all the afflictions' roots are ignorance. But ignorance, the ignorance that is connected to the desire is even worse. The reason of us still in this wondering this samsara is because of desire, is because of grasping. So the Sakaya Ditti, or the view of body, has actually 64 types of those. But at the bottom of this is the view of I and the view of mind. And then the fundamental basis for those is desire. And that is the root reason for us still wondering samsara. As a practitioner or as someone who longs for liberation, for nirvana, then we should eradicate desire. Otherwise, if we have desire, it's very, very difficult to get liberated. As stated in Udana Varga Sutra, it says that just like making an error by oneself and end up with it injuring one's own body, the error of craving is likewise. With it, the self and other sentient beings are all damaged and hurted. Not only you harm yourself, and in fact you would harm others with the view of desire or with grasping. Once you are hurt or you are pierced by the arrow of desire, then it is quite suffering for oneself as well as others. For people who don't have much desire and grasping, then they would have a rather peaceful and very delightful life without too much suffering in their life and without too much afflictions. We say that in the Mara's hand, he actually holds the 5 arrows, which are the 5 poisons, the greed, anger, ignorance, doubt, and so on. Those arrows would hurt others. In the Western culture, they also talk about the arrow of Cupid. In the Greek mythology, it is depicted as a child holding an arrow. In fact, the arrow he holds could pierce others' heart, and that's how it's usually depicted. The one arrow with two pierced hearts. I think lots of those mythologies from the West are quite interesting, and lots of those folk stories of the East are also very interesting as well. We shouldn't think of everything as fake or as just a story, as just made up, because they could also have manifested a body, and they could manifest in different forms. Anyhow, this story over here, the arrow of Cupid, actually, he has two arrows. One arrow with the head of a golden head, and the other one is an arrow with a lead head. The golden one would bring uncontrollable love, and the lead will bring the lost of love or devoid of love. People usually would describe Cupid as someone who's really sweet and who brings love and so on. But many don't really know that he has two arrows. One is the one with gold, and the other one is with lead. Once you are pierced by the arrow of lead, then everything's over. There's no love anymore. Just as a few days ago, Brexit finally finally was set. In many reports it was described that the Great Britain was married to the European Union for 45 years, and then the Brexit is like a divorce of the UK and European Union. So love is not all happy and romantic at all the time, and it's of course not all suffering either, but it is something that is without investigating further. It does bring happess to sentient beings temporarily, but the root of such is actually that we have such desire grasping to this world. And then the 10th question asked, what is the fundamental basis of desire? The 9th question, actually, then the answer from Vimalakirti says that false discrimination is its fundamental basis. Because false discrimination is the root of all dharmas or all phenomena, rather. Because all phenomena doesn't really have good or bad, doesn't have anything to be discriminated. Everything appears as it is. Everything appears, and it doesn't really have high or low, but it is our false discrimination that would bother ourselves. This is all because of our false discriminations. In the Sutra of Great Compassion, it says that who is the living, who is being aging, who is the dead, and who is being reborn, who is flowing between life and death. All of these are illusory and fabricated conceptions and all false discriminations. In fact, all this birth, death, and all those aged, those are all our discriminations, our false discriminations, our illusory concepts. And then Manjushri continued to ask, what is the fundamental basis of false discrimination then? And then he said that confused concepts is its fundamental basis. And then he continued to ask, what is the fundamental of confused conceptions? And then Vimalakirti continued to say that non-abiding is its fundamental basis. Because these confused conceptions are permanence, bliss, or joy, and existent self, and purity. So all of these are non-abiding, doesn't have a true nature. I would encourage you to read Agama Sutra if you want to know more about the permanent self and existent self, happiness and purity. Because I'm translating this, so I am giving lots of commercials on the Agama Sutra and encourage you to read it. Hopefully next year I'll have some of it translated, and anyhow, I would encourage you to read into it. In the Theravada tradition or the Pali Canon, it in fact explains really well on what is permanence, what is existent self, and happiness, and purity. So it really explains a lot on these confused conceptions and explained it really profoundly. Anyhow, the non-abiding is the fundamental basis of confused conceptions. It appears as so, but it doesn't have anything to be grasped onto as anything. Doesn't have anything in any of those existent nature. In the introduction to the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, it says that so too all things, though empty, strongly manifest within their very emptiness, and since the inherent nature in neither truth, phenomena are neither nothing nor unchanging entities. I recited this Tibetan version of Introduction to Middle Way back in 1989 before I went to India. So a Khenpo at that time constantly recite this verse. He constantly used this during his debating sessions, and he would quote this verse. At that time, we were all still very young. Then everything is non-abiding, and non-abiding is without any fundamental basis. At that time, then, if everything is empty, but things still manifest in this very emptiness, phenomena will still arise in such emptiness. For people who have never studied the Middle Way or Madhyamika, they don't understand how could things arise from emptiness. It's okay, even if you don't understand now, you will slowly learn and be able to understand this later on. Anyhow, they talked about this part is the conversation between Manjushri and Vimalakirti. Now, in the next part, a goddess appears, so a different scene. At that time, after listening to the conversation of Manjushri and Vimalakirti, then the goddess who resides in Vimalakirti's home appears. In Master Sanjao and other commentaries, they said that this goddess is actually enlightened being and above the 8th bhumi, so someone really great. At that time, goddess appeared. Goddess from celestial realm. And during our sitting arrangement, maybe the goddess would sit on the female side and the male celestial beings would sit on the male side. Male sections, they would abide also the rules that we made over here. Do they abide the rules? Do you think they would abide rules? No? Oh, so you can see it from your divine eye.
然后这个天女呢，就是她那个就是这个善那个现化，就是对。
So at that time, the goddess started to scatter the heavenly flowers.
公平吧，就是当时这个天女呢，
the goddess are making offerings in such a way. So all of a sudden, the goddess started appearing in the body or manifesting a form, and then started to scatter heavenly flowers all over. In Han tradition, in some of those Chan tradition, in fact, there are many stories about scattering heavenly flowers. But when or after she scattered all those heavenly flowers, but those petals and flowers, after touching the body and clothing of bodhisattvas and bodhisattvas, then those flowers all immediately fell off. But for those great disciples or Shravaka students of the Buddha, then those flowers right away stick right onto their clothing. At that time, in fact, all the Shravakas are quite nervous. They're very attentive to their appearance, to their clothing, and so on. The bodhisattvas' clothing didn't really have any flowers sticked onto or glued onto their flowers. But at that time, all the Shravakas' clothing and all from head to toe are sticked with lots of flowers and petals. And they were trying to get rid of those flowers and remove them. And then Madhgalayana and Shariputra, they were trying to get rid of those flowers and petals through their miraculous powers. But they couldn't get it off either. A story stated in the Theravada Sutra where it stated that there was a novice bhikshu. There was a bhikshu who naturally has a flower on the side of his ear, and once he removed it, the flower would naturally appear again. There was a story behind it, why the flower behind his ear would continue to grow. In fact, he was... Apparently, in his past life, he was a person who was an alcoholic. He was drunk, and at that time, by chance, he was wearing a flower on the side of his ear, and then a Tathagata at that time, at his time, was giving teachings, and hearing those teachings, he was really happy, and he offered that flower to the Tathagata, and in his later lives, he would naturally, a flower would naturally appear around his ear. So that's why he has a flower over there. So I'll stop here. Anyway, those Shravakas couldn't get rid of those flowers on their body and their clothing. And then the goddess said to Shariputra, so the goddess is on the team of Malakriti. And then asked Shariputra, saying that, why would you remove the flowers? The Shariputra started answering, saying that these flowers are not appropriate to Shravakas. As a bhikshu, I shouldn't wearing all these flowers. This is not appropriate for us to wear. I think this is really not. This may be a little bit different now. Just as when I went to Thailand, and those Theravada monks, they are usually very proper. They wouldn't get close to female practitioners at all, or any women. But when it comes to the flower garlands, they would accept it without too much hesitation. So maybe it's different. In fact, flowers are symbols. It's a symbol of enlightenment, just as picking up a flower and smiling to the Buddha. That's the famous Zen story of getting a sign of enlightenment. Another sign or another symbol of flowers actually symbolizes how it beautifies, how it also purifies because of its fragrance. It beautifies your shrine just as you offer flowers on your shrine. Another symbol of flowers another symbol of flower is that it is a symbol of fruition, of attaining enlightenment. Because once you have flower, you definitely have fruit. It's a sign of having fruit. So in the story of Prince Yiqing, when we were when we read those stories, and then we also make such aspiration of offering flowers and so on. Those are the auspicious origination that you should make. You should make offerings so that to wish for it would come to fruition. Let's look at how there are people who make offering to make flower offering to the stupa would also receive, or also their karma would come to fruition in such a way that they will have beautiful ornaments in their lifetimes to come. So I think making offering to the Buddha statue, to the stupa, and then to the scriptures, those are really important to make offerings to those. It generates lots of merits. Then the goddess said that do not say that these flowers are contrary to the Dharma or inappropriate for you. Why is that? Because these flowers are without discrimination. Because Shariputra, it is you who are generating discriminative thoughts. How could you say the flowers are not good? The flower doesn't have anything to discriminate itself, but you are having discriminations yourself. The flower doesn't discriminate if it's good or bad, but you are making such discriminations. So she's giving teachings from a Mahayana angle. I think at that time Shariputra must be really quite bashful and quite embarrassed. The bodhisattvas, however, they don't have any flowers sticks to them. It's because they don't have any of those dualistic thoughts, and they don't have false discriminations. But I think you shouldn't use such words to judge others. You shouldn't use such excuses to judge others, because maybe you haven't really got there yet. And that's why the Buddha taught in a systematic way. And therefore, I think we should pay attention and be very careful in such a manner. And then he continued to say, in fact, the goddess given an example, saying that if one has particular fear, then all of those non-humans would actually come to harm them. If a person is afraid, then those non-human beings are going to harm them or control them. For people who often have fear, have anxiety, have depression, then with such false discrimination, such dualistic thoughts, then it will attract those unfortunate things. As in our folk culture, people usually say that the more you fear, the more you will lose, or the more you fear, the more it will come to you.
这个还是有感受的，就经常想啊，会不会上什么失去，就有一些后来还是有很多的那种，然后你就
I
觉得
often felt that am I going to get sick? Am I going to get ill? Then if you have such grasping towards your body, then you will. If you're afraid of dogs, you would be afraid. You may be afraid of dogs, and you may be thinking that I hope I don't get bitten by a dog, and maybe you will on the way.
所以这个时候呢，也有这样的，就是所以好像那个深沼大师还是在那个
According to Master Sun Zhao, in the commentary of Vimalkirti Sutra, he said he gave a story of how a Raksha, which is a demoness spirit or a form that transformed himself into a horse. And at that time, he then asked the person saying that, a person who's coming, and then asked, what do you think of a horse like me? And then that person saying that, well, holding a knife, saying that, what do you think of my knife? And then this Raksha realized that this person has an upright mind and he has no fear in his mind, and therefore he did not harm him at all. The more you fear to lose, the more likely you'll lose it. I think in terms of health, as myself, in terms of health, in fact, I don't have good health, physical health. I've always had bad health. I do take medicines whenever I need to, but I don't pay too much attention to it. If I die, I die. I don't have too much grasping towards my body. I don't pay too much attention to my physical body. And if you don't have too much fear towards it, then in fact, it won't harm you. So when people are having fear, then the more obstacles will come on your way. So, since all these Shravakas fear samsara, then the form, sound, smell, taste, and the tangible forms will control you. When the beautiful smells and tastes and forms and sounds appear and tangibles appear, then it will create lots of obstacles. Just as someone's some monastic parents some monastics who don't have lots of fear to give up on the path, never really thought in that way, they're more likely to continue. And for people who fear obstacles and who constantly think, I really don't want to give up my path, I'm so afraid of obstacles, and then it's more likely to be interrupted on your path. Sometimes I think being very forceful is not really helpful, but if we can relax a bit, but we should use right mindfulness to keep our principles, to keep our bottom lines, I think that's very good, because if we were to stop everyone's dualistic thoughts and to force everyone to stop their false discriminations, then people sometimes they actually would encounter more obstacles just because they have a force that would fight them back. When you do fear the samsara, when you do fear of be unsuccessful. Just as there are people actually kept on telling me that while you have so many disciples, you should prepare yourself for the downfall or making mistakes, and you should be prepared for such things. In fact, nowadays many people kept on saying that it's quite important to be prepared for the failure. Maybe 10 years ago, people kept on telling me of that I should have a team to face failures or to face obstacles that comes on the way. But I think nowadays lots of celebrities and there are many things happening in the world. Even if there are negative informations and rumors about them, yes, it may
那么在这里呢，就是说这个，如果你远离了危机的话，那一切就是色相味触，对你制造违愿，就是那个佛说的那个三教方便经啊，大乘三教方便经里面呢，就是说是这个菩萨摩诃萨呢，就是有一种习气，色相味触吧，就是在菩萨摩诃萨呢，在五个这个境当中的话，你随以这个习气，但是呢，不坏真心，不会坏你的这个行为。菩萨摩诃萨是他知道的这个世界的真相，所以呢，就是在这个色身相味当中的话，你怎么样这个习气，实际上也是不坏他的这个真心啊。那么节气呢，如果没有短像那个声闻缘觉一样，就是细微的这种习气啊，就是虽然烦恼障已经断了，但是烦恼障的这个习气啊，就是这些的话呢，就是没有断的话呢，刚才这个话呢，就是身上一直掉不下去这样的。如果像菩萨一样的，就是节气已经断了，菩萨呢有已经证悟这个法悟，不仅是人悟，还有法悟。法悟证悟的话呢，那就是除了极细微的这个习气以外的，一般粗大的这个贪着的这些习气呢，都已经断了。
Eradicated all the they've already eradicated their habitual patterns. Of course, there are still residues of subtle habitual patterns or latent influence of their past habitual patterns, because that would be eradicated only at the time of Buddhahood. Therefore, the bodhisattvas could turn all those form, sounds, and smell and turn those onto the path of practice, but the Shravakas, because they still have influence or still have habitual patterns, and therefore they cannot play in all of these aspects yet. But I think we should not pretend either, because in pretense, if you live in pretense, then you don't really have a relaxed life.
跟出呢，就我们现在第一步跨的是什么？就是跟那个诸位的人呢，就是要关系好一点。像我们不说什么开什么戒律啊，就是这些都我们不是我们的境界，不是开这是不是我们的这个范围，不是我们的境界。但是至少的话呢，我们这个。
We should, at least, within our Buddhist community, everyone should break through our boundaries. Let's not pretend or put on mask.
像这个大乘佛教里面，我要度天下无边的话，可能稍微有点大了。但是呢，至少也是其实我们佛教真的跟那个其他宗教，我今天跟其他宗教接触的时候呢，就觉得是我们佛教徒应该可以跟这个很多宗教都完全是可以团结的，因为我们的观点是每一个众生都有佛性嘛，每一个众生都是将来的佛者，只不过是暂时呢，就扮演的角色不同而已。有些是在基督教当中，有些是在那个伊斯兰教当中。
Why would I say that? Because all sessions have the Buddha nature. Doesn't matter if they're Christians. Doesn't matter if they're from different religions, different countries. They still have Buddha nature. Let's not be too extremist and saying that this person is not from my own religion. Therefore, I should kill that person.
很厉害的。
Maybe in
所以
ancient religions
我们
it
呢
happened
就是
like
希
that,
望
but
就是这个佛教徒呢，
now
就是行为呢，就是尽量的这个
in
如理
our
如
own
法，
actions,
尤其是
in
自
the
己的心
Buddhist
呢，应该有一种包容
practitioners'
性。
actions
这样的话呢，自己也
and
获得
mind, we should be more
快乐
inclusive
否则
so
的话呢
that you
好像
can
自
be
己
happy.
把自己就今天我觉得这样的很好的，全部都是自己的分别念的原因。 不是我
You
这样
are
的话，今
really
天我
imprisoning
们姐姐
yourself. I think I did a really good job in teaching.
我自己都不满意。
Rather,
但是呢，
the
确实
content
这
of
些内
today
容
is
的话
really
呢，
good.
我们
Maybe I
还是
didn't
很
teach
有
it
值得
well.
这个学习啊，就是
But
我们
the
这个人活在这个世界上，其实生命是很短
Teaching
暂的。
is quite
在这个
precious.
时候呢，我们尽
During
量
our
不要
very
扰乱
short
这
human
个
life,
信啊。因此
let's
这个方法
try
律
our
法
best
最
not
给
to
我们
disturb
留下来
others'
的
mind.
这个教验的话呢，就是
And we should
有
keep
模
this
设计
in
的
our
无扰他
heart,
信。
the
我们
teaching
每
of
天的
Jimmy
尽量
Ponso
不扰
Rinpoche,
乱别人
where
的
he
时候
said
这
that
就是弘扬佛
let's
法。尽量的
stay
就是
on
不
our
涉及
own
自己的
path,
这个
let's
信
not
我是
let
佛教徒
go
的
of
佛教
our
徒
own
的
path
信
and not
我的
let
这个所有
not
的言行
disturb
举止
other
我尽
people's
量
mind.
如果我有一
So
些
as
违反的
Buddhist
话呢，那我要
practitioners,
去这个
let's
忏悔，就是这也是一个很好的方
try
法
our
吧。
best
今
to
天
abide
就
in
讲到
our
这里。
own rule and not disturb others.